Batu, Barada, Nikto.
You must remember those words.
Gordon's alive.
You know what the Turing test is?
I know Kung Fu.
Dead or alive, you are coming with me.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Stories Out of Time and Space. I'm your regular host, Scott Weatherly, and as always, I am joined by Julian Darius. But Julian, are you yourself, or is there somebody else in there? Who's going to be doing the podcast today?
I contain multitudes.
Yeah.
There are many people vying for control. I do sometimes feel this way. I mean, I do really like this idea of sort of multiple memories, kind of not knowing like what's real or you know, are there somebody else's memories? Did that come from some fiction I saw or what have you? What about you, Scott? Are you yourself today?
Today, I feel, but tomorrow's another day. We shall see. But today, for the podcast, we're going to be talking about 2020's Possessor, directed by David Cronenberg, written by David Cronenberg. The story of, I'm just going to call her Voss, but Tasia Voss, the character, who is, I'm going to say, like a corporate assassin kind of thing. I think that's really what it is. Who, using technology, is placed in a state and is then possesses or aligns with a victim, and then is able to influence and sort of possess that person to do things, and then that person will kill a person, somebody else, kill the victim, and then kill themselves, basically sort of enabling it to look like a random attack or a murder, and then whoever the client is completely clean, no connections, so on and so forth. However, when she starts to possess a victim, Colin Tate, things start to go wrong. She's already seems to be suffering from some sort of psychological breakdown, but the more that pressure gets put on, the boundaries or the barriers between what is Voss and what is Colin Tate start to break down. And will she pull off this job? So that's a quick sort of rundown of this. Julian, what did you think of Possessor?
I like this film. You know, I like this film a lot. I'm surprised by how much I like it. I think that it could do a better job of explaining this technology. I don't know that we really need it, but it seems as if what they're doing to stage these kinds of like heists, these murders, are that they kidnap somebody, and then they drill these holes in their head, and they create a biodegradable net that is able to serve this. They mentioned this. That's able to allow somebody else to sort of possess them, to control them, especially using some gizmo, which we never see, to kind of like align their brainwaves again. You know, and they only
we do see one thing, because there's like a probe she has to insert into the and it turns it up.
Yeah, when that guy shows up to help her. Yeah.
And she does it as the opening character. It's the very first thing you see is her aligning herself, as they call it, or calibrating herself, they call it, using that thing to sort of calibrate to make sure she's fully in control.
So I'm not sure how this really works. I'm not sure, you know, and the fact that it's used, it's a little like Inception, where it's like, you have this like amazing technology. I mean, I'm not sure when this evolved, or you know, like what timeline we're in that you have this, or all the preceding inventions that you need to have to lead up to this. And I'm also not sure, if you had this, would you be using it for this? Right?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Like in that case, it's like we can control people's dreams. You know, we can go into them as real spaces, but we're using them for like corporate espionage. This is like we're using it for corporate espionage. Like, I mean, okay, so there's a profit motive, but you know, what's the government doing with this? What's the military?
Yeah. Well, yeah, or the entertainment industry. Let's be honest. Like,
Well, imagine, old washed up celebrities saying like, I'll do a video for $500. I'll let you into my brain and my body for, 5 million.
yeah, exactly. Like, I'm thinking Strange Days kind of
Mm,
technology. Feeding off someone
mm,
else's visuals and memories and stuff. Yeah, no, I agree. The technology is a little vague, but I get the general thing of like she
yeah.
sits in a machine that allows she projects her consciousness to this receiver inside the victim, and then she can controls them like a meat puppet kind of thing. But what's interesting is as she does this, it has in the first. So basically, I like the fact so it opens with a demonstration of this. Like she's on a
Mm,
heist or a mission, as you say, and it's the woman's called Holly. This black woman who sort of is has been possessed, and she's inserting the probe into her head so she can calibrate, and then she goes to a gym or something. I don't know what it was, like a bar as well, and she kills this guy, and she just stabs him, like stabs him in the neck, and then she repeatedly stabs him, and then she sort of runs her hands through the blood. But the point she's supposed to kill herself. Like she's supposed to blow her own brains out. Like she'll be extracted, like her consciousness is extracted, but like she's supposed to kill it, so there's no way of following up with the murderer. I mean, this is the one thing she can't do throughout the film. She cannot get the person to commit suicide, and so in that one, she commits suicide by police. Like she gets the police to kill her. And that's all cool. I love the opening bit. I think it's all very, very good. But what's fascinating is when she comes out and they have to do this test, and she'll go through like she picks up a pipe and she's like, "This was my granddad's pipe, and this was given to me by my father. I didn't meet my granddad." And then she picks up like this box and it's got a butterfly, and she's like, "I killed this and I mounted it." And she says all these things, and then she sort of puts it aside. And there's this idea of calibrating back to herself.
mm.
And she keeps saying, "Oh yeah, I've got a bit of a hangover from that person. I'm not entirely, I'm not entirely calibrated back to myself." And so there's obviously this when she is doing that, she's constantly sort of like merging this. There's like a feedback, like it's not a one-way system. This seems like there's almost two ways, and that's what grows. And so I think all that it's not explicitly said, but I like the way it's set up that you are like, oh, this is not straightforward. This is not wholly safe. It feels dangerous for her to be doing it.
One thing I kept thinking about is, and I rarely mention it, but in Martian comics, that I make sci-fi comics. The main storyline, one of the things is this sort of projection tank that lets Martians, control humans. And I decided very early on that like if you could actually do this, you would live inside somebody else's experiences and their memories. And when you see like an object, it's associated with the thoughts of that brain and the feelings of that brain. And so it would be this kind of like disorienting experience where you still know you're you, but you have all of these thoughts and memories and feelings and associations that, feel natural to you and yet are new and aren't actually part of you, but certainly feel part of you. So, I mean, I like that this is, having some of those same thoughts.
Yeah, I really like this idea that it made me think about so Voss as a character. It made me think about why was she chosen? What makes her special? And the thing that sort of comes to my mind throughout this is there's the potential that she's like a psychopath or a sociopath. Like she's good at this because she doesn't actually. There is no real Voss. Like it's all it's alluded to throughout the film on several occasions that she's like not an empty vessel, but like she's good at this because she can infuse herself with this other person as a skill. Because when she comes out the first time and she goes home to meet her husband and her kid, like she has to rehearse how she's going to talk to them to make it sound like herself. Like she practices how she would say lines. Talking to her son, like, I'm starving. I can't, you've cooked. Oh, fantastic. And she goes through like several versions of this before she's like, okay, I'm ready to go in. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Like she's still trying to calibrate.
Let's be honest. Have you ever done that? I mean, I've done that.
Maybe, but yes. But it depends on who I'm seeing. Sometimes I've done it when it's someone I'm nervous about seeing, which is understandable, or it's a big thing. Like when I'm younger, it's been like a girlfriend's parents, or it's a job interview, or something like that. But for her to be doing it for her son and stuff, and it's for such mundane things. It's even the greeting, "Hi, how are you?" feels uncomfortable to me watching this. I'm like, oh, she's not quite ready for this.
Well, I took that from it that I like the psychopath angle, right? Because especially with the killing of the butterfly that comes back at the end. So maybe that is a deeper thing that I have to think about. Was she always already a psychopath? I sort of took it that she has some lingering effect from having done this, right? That she's obviously not as well as she's supposed to be coming out of this, right? It's taken a toll. The other thing you've mentioned that you didn't mention is that not only was she supposed to kill herself, but she wasn't supposed to stab this guy.
Oh no, yeah, she's supposed to shoot him.
She's been given a gun.
Yeah,
she's supposed to, and they assumed that she would just shoot him and then kill herself. And she's just like, well, it seemed more in character. But what she's done, right? Like, imagine you're in charge of this person. What she's done is not only stab this person in the neck, right? We don't know this, but been utterly entranced by the blood and slow motion and got the blood all over, and then proceeded to straight up like prison style shank this dude like 20 times, like like the psychotic who can't stop stabbing somebody, like that's what this person has got full on, and then take her hands, which aren't her hands, are different color than her hands, and mix them in the blood and play in the blood.
Yes.
All of which might be a red flag, right?
Well, her sort of handler, Gerda, played by Jennifer Jason Leigh. You're right, because she asks that, doesn't she? She says, "We gave you literally had a gun. Like, you've gone off book." And she says, "Oh, I thought it was more in character." And her response is, "Whose character?"
Right. Yeah.
And it's even she's a bit like, this one's getting a little bit like it's time, because she says to her after, like, it's time for you to start finding a replacement.
Yeah,
I think they recognize that she's on the edge.
Well, and also it seems to me that they recognize this is not a job you can do forever. No. That it takes a psychological toll. There's discussion about how it can take a physical toll on your brain, right? This is not a job for old men, right?
Yes. Yeah. Well, you say about the psychological, and this is where I started to question the sort of the psychopath angle, as it were, because then when she does go back to her husband and her child, there's a couple of things. Like the first thing is she goes straight to the phone that evening. She has food, dinner and stuff, and she sleeps with her husband, and she's got all these meets friends, blah blah. But then straight away she's like on the phone to them, going like, I'm ready. I want to get back in. Like it's almost like an addiction. Like it's fulfilling a gap in her that she needs to fulfill, or it gives her an excuse to be able to do something. And then when her husband's sort of like, "What are you doing?" on the phone, like she visualizes him with the knife in his neck and there's blood and this other stuff. So she's fixating on the kill. She's replaying it in her mind. But more than that, the other one that was curious is her response to her child. Like it's very detached, almost a little bit detached. And then when he's asleep, she goes in and starts sniffing him. Like she's looking for that scent, but I took it as like she's looking for some sort of connection that like I should have. So I should be able to feel something from the scent of my child. And she's a bit like, I was like, okay, this is not a well person.
Well, I think it's clear she's not well. I sort of, I think you're onto something here. I sort of was thinking that that she's disconnected, and that there's like a sort of like social disorder, right? Like I've known people with social disorders who did rehearse stuff, right? And who didn't necessarily feel. I mean, yeah, like I took what you took as signs of potential sociopathy. I took as potential side effects of her having done this too long, right?
Yeah.
That it's like, this is not my beautiful house. This is not my beautiful son. Um, this is the person I know is my son. This is the person I know is I mean, the PTSD angle of just imagining, you know what I'm saying? It's like I sort of saw this is a soldier returning home from war going like, I can't not imagine the stabbing and my son. I don't know how to relate to him anymore.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point actually, because one of the things that this film doesn't give you is the cumulative effect of how many missions has she been on? Like, has she been, like you say, this isn't something you can do for your entire life, but like, has she been doing this for a year, 5 years, 10 years? Like, how long has this been going on? And it could well be like Peter. That's a really good point. Is she may not be suffering from sort of psychopathy. It could be actually this is PTSD. She's just detached from everything because of the violence and everything, and the strain this has put on her repeatedly of each of the missions. But in doing so, it's actually created an addiction because it's the only thing that she's able to connect with because she's so detached from everything else.
Yeah, that's what I thought. It's like
Yeah.
it's the soldier going like, I gotta get back to Nam, man. Like that's the only thing that makes sense. I don't know how to relate to these people anymore.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's a really good point. I mean, this could be an allegory for that, for someone struggling to acclimatize back to civilian life, as it were. Like, it's there, but it's that thing, isn't it? They say you've got everything at home. You always get that sort of the storybook ending. Even Rambo got it in the fourth one. You get to go home.
Yeah.
Your time's done, son. Go home. It's time for you to settle down. Like, wait, how do you do that after you've gone through everything that they've gone through?
Well, wasn't that the point of the first Rambo, right? Like,
yeah, and the second one, and the third one actually. Oh, and the fourth. Yeah, they've all they're very similar in that sense. But yeah, exactly. And
but in this case, like there's actual reason to think there is neurological damage, and which there is in PTSD anyway, frankly, right? I mean, we're learning, but that there may be decaying of her own brain and some of those synapses. I mean, we don't know the details of this machine, but it's clear that like the FDA is not, standing watch, making sure this is done appropriately.
Yeah, this technology does not come with like a user manual that's been approved by someone. This has got some extra. One thing I did like cause she does get a follow up mission, which is this Colin Tate, which is she's got to use him to kill Colin's girlfriend, Colin's dad, who is Sean Bean. So Sean Bean's destined to die in every film. So, but the thing that I thought was interesting is she's not just dropped in. It's not like just whack on the helmet and off you go. Like it shows that actually there's a little bit of she follows them, like she's watching him and she's sort of trying to mimic his speech patterns and some of the words he says, and she's learning about who he is so that when she gets dropped in, she can replicate that and has the knowledge to do it as well, which I thought was a nice little section to show there's actually research and there's homework that goes with doing this job, which made it feel a bit more like, oh, they've thought this through. This is, it's not Mission Impossible where all of a sudden here's your mission, go do. There's actual work that goes with it.
Yeah, no, and I think that's good, and I think that she's a great actor, and a great actress, and she is sort of mesmerizing on the screen. There's a real presence despite her sort of being out of it the whole time, right? Like there's a lot of her staring off into space, but she's very good.
Yeah, Andrea Riseborough. Yeah, I've seen her in a couple of things, but she's very good. I want to talk about it does then get to this thing. They kidnap Colin Tate, they drill into his head, and you see sort of bits of that. But the bit I loved that I really liked, and I think we've go to the bonus features because we talk about the short film that was made as a sort of like to sort of for Brandon Cronenberg to test out some ideas and stuff. But there's a scene here where she goes into the machine and she is merged with Colin Tate. And it's sort of, at first I was like, oh, it's going to have some sort of like twist and thing, but like no, it has her like melt like a wax figure and then reform, but as him, and it does all this stuff. And I thought that was fantastic. I really loved all that scene, the sort of like the merging or that sort of thing of how she's possessing this person. Really gave it sort of like almost like a painful experience to do, which I thought was really, really cool.
Yeah, and it evokes this sense of identity, right? Of where does one mind begin and the other end? And you do see her sort of like checking out his body and sort of examining his penis and stuff like that. There's but not in a gimmicky kind of big way, not
there's no comedy to it. There's no sort of like, oh my god, sort of like it's
and that image, besides like sort of melting identity, it also gets at the horror of sort of like you say, like this is not a fun comedic experience, right? This is like puts a strain on somebody, and you do get the sense, whether it's sociopathy or mental toughness or something, that she's gone through tests. She's a veteran at this. She wasn't selected off the street, right? I mean, no. She is. She's a toughie.
Yeah, and when it goes with it, because it's not just this, obviously, that goes with like weapons training, and you've obviously, you've then got to commit an act of murder that I suppose you could sort of distance yourself from because it's being done physically by somebody else. But yeah, there's a lot of strain and a lot of sort of stuff that would go with this. I like the fact as well that this, you say that there's a strain that goes with this, because she's on her own technically, like she's in this person's being, she's in the physical of Colin Tate, and she can communicate back at base. I like the way they did that with the sort of the reverb of both voices at the same time and stuff. But when he first is talking to Tate's girlfriend, who's one of the targeted victims, and he's trying to, Voss is through Colin is trying to have speak properly, ask the right questions, and she says like, well, you've been you're in a great mood. You're being strange, aren't you? Like she's jokingly saying it, but I love the fact there's that moment of like, oh, okay, I've got to calibrate myself.
What do you make of that? I mean, because that comes back. It comes back like at the party or whatever. Is it just that because we see her sort of rehearsing with a microphone, like listening to the way he speaks and trying to imitate his cadence. I'm not sure.
Well, there's two
why
things
that wouldn't come naturally in his brain, but
yeah.
But what is it that the girlfriend's hearing that's different or seeing?
I think it's his mood, because I think the thing. So one of the things that's interesting, I like the fact is like it has almost like a there's a file, there's a motive. They're trying to create, because there's a narrative that's got to go with this. He can't just be like, oh, he snapped and he killed these people. Like they're trying to create a narrative that will throw the police off as well. So the point they're trying to make is the strain of being basically in a crappy job, but dating the daughter of the boss. He's emotionally unstable, all that straight, so he keeps building up to say, oh, I think they want to have witnesses say, well, in the days before this happened, like he wasn't himself. He was staying, he was acting paranoid or whatever, or out of character. So I think he's looking to do that, Voss is looking to do that with Tate, but manage it. Which is because then they say that she gets told to do at the party is to have a public blowout with the girlfriend's dad. So it's building up to create that when he does snap, it's like they can go, oh, that's what's caused it. Crazy person, or he's sort of under pressure or drunk or whatever, crime of passion, whatever they are. So I see that, but I feel like that first scene is Voss is dipping her toe in the water, and it's sort of like, okay, does that work? Does that not work? I know how to talk like him, but what works in this relationship kind of thing. I think
Right.
which again, it shows there's work being done to build this up. It doesn't always go straight, right first time sort of thing.
Yeah. I think I get that impression. I was more pleased with the party scene and what you're talking about, like sort of setting the stage,
Mm.
crafting a convincing narrative. I think that's very effective. And I think, of course, every 2 days or so we have a new school shooter over here. So we're always looking at terrible mass murder events and wondering, what was the motive? Can we ever reconstruct it if somebody's dead? Um, you know, yeah, that kind of stuff certainly hits home and also plays into the movie makes you feel a little paranoid, right? Of sort of like, right, is this going on? How much of, because obviously cops follow narratives, right? Cops like to have a neat little,
Mm.
story that makes sense. And guy couldn't take it anymore, berated by his girlfriend's father, gets drunk, gets kicked out, and then comes back for revenge. Especially if the guy's dead, is a simple story that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it works, and they're able to sort of carry it away. I think, and that's what I like about it. That they've thought about this. Like they've tried to give it this explanation of like there's got to be a narrative, there's got to be a sort of a believable motive, da da da. And that all works pretty well actually. One of the things I thought was interesting though is, and it's not really, I may have missed it to be honest, but one of the things is that Tate works for the boss, who is Sean Bean, who is, I was going to find the character, John Pass. And what we find is that his job appears to be sort of basically wearing a VR headset to look through people's webcams and is describing the the curtains and stuff that they have in their house. But in each occasion, like it basically is their bedroom, and he catches there's a scene where he basically it's Voss that's in there, gets a bit thrown off side because she sees two people having sex. And they basically called out, going like, "You're going too slow. Move on to the next one. What is it you see?" I was like, "I don't. What is the job? Like, I don't. Like, is this?"
I think I know what the job is. I think that I don't know that it makes sense, but I think the job is basically like, when you do the captchas, and the captcha's like find the buses in this, find the street lights, right? So that's actually storing your work. You're actually doing work for companies when you do that, right? So like they do know the answers, but they're also if you get the answer wrong, you get another try. So actually they do take the mass of information and are using that to develop AI, right? And develop better ability for software to recognize those things. So there are, like on Amazon Turk, where you can farm out these kinds of jobs. There are jobs like this where your job is to like identify stuff in photos, or identify like, is this pornographic? How would you, characterize this car? And you've got to type in adjectives or whatever. And this is like to train AI, or something like that. In fact, there's an Adult Swim parody, like there are too many cooks, where there's a parody where it's a for-profit university that basically guarantees people jobs after they graduate, but the job that they all get is identifying things for AI like this, where they're sitting on a computer for like 8 hours or 12 hours just clicking like, is this a dog? Yes, no, on image after image. So I think this is a more sophisticated version of that. Maybe it's a thing for a curtain company that wants to know some information or something like that, or train an AI. But it is bizarre.
It is bizarre.
It could use a little more explanation.
Yeah. Because what's funny as well is that the girlfriend's friends know about it. They know what the job is. because one of them admits that she basically sits in front of on a daily basis, sits in front of her webcam and masturbates just to give them something to look at. You're like, all right, okay, this is a known thing. Like, this is bizarre, but fair enough. So yeah, but the job, I get the drudgery of the job. So like, again, they're setting this thing up of like there's a drudgery, it's under pressure because it's like the production line, but like you say, doing something for somebody else. So I like this idea of like they've picked this character, this Colin, for a reason. But yeah, but it's never explained like how he's met the girlfriend or how he's got a connection with, because the boss has given him this job, but basically it's like Pass has given him this job to basically drive him away.
Well, it's like I'll give you a job in the mailroom, and by the way, the mailroom's terrible.
Yeah, it's on fire.
Yeah,
no, I like all this sort of stuff. It is interesting, but it's this is where I think like you say, the world building's a little bit. I don't need loads, but like there's gaps in the world building where I'm like, oh, okay, 2 minutes or 2 to 5 minutes here or there would have helped this a little bit more. A lunchroom scene with people, on the production line with him or something like that would have been quite interesting.
Yeah. No, you're right. I mean, how do they know? The other question is, how when they talk about privacy and masturbating on the webcam, I mean, the implication is that, this is playing off of privacy concerns, right? And all of us giving our data to, tech companies. Except those tech companies aren't supposed to be spying on us through our webcams, right?
Yeah.
The same is true of your camera on your phone, right? You might give them control, you give them permission, but they're not supposed to be doing this casually, right? Now, Alexa is taking recordings, right? And and we know about this, but that's in order for it to do what its function is, right? So, and you can purge that or whatever else. But I'm not. It seems like maybe this is because this is an alternate timeline with this different technology. It seems like maybe there are different rules in this one. Maybe there aren't as many privacy concerns about your webcam because it's clearly in the open, right? I mean,
I was going to say,
yeah,
that's what I was going to say. It's almost like everyone seems to know about it and not be concerned. So, but I also think like it goes back to this, this theme of you say about privacy, because obviously Voss is invading someone's most personal space. She's invading his brain, and these cameras, the ones
that's my least personal space, by the way.
Yes, yeah, but the cameras are all in people's bedrooms. Like when she goes through, like we see beds pretty much in every single as it slots through. So again, it's this, like you said, this invasion of privacy. It's this technology is allowing someone to reach into your most personal areas. So I get that it's sort of a replication of that. But this seems to be where, as well, the first part of the film of we get to see that there's some sort of degradation between Voss and Tate, like something started to go wrong. But what's it's one of those things in films that really bothers me when you get a character like this. It's a trope that sort of it's a bit annoying. It's not. It's fine, but like you get the protagonist, and then something happens like this. They pass out, or they know this is dangerous technology, or something happens, and then they go, what happened was that your vitals spiked. And they go, no, it's fine. I'm going to carry on. And you're just like, don't be tough. Don't be so bloody stupid. Because it's this sort of I was going to say machoism, but it's not really applicable here. But it is, I suppose it is. But it's this thing of like carrying on, and I'm just like, I sort of get it, but like I don't know, it feels tropey.
You're right. No, you're totally right. I mean, and I find myself thinking in those circumstances, like the real professionals tend to share that information. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, real professionals aren't like, golly, I've got to hide this. I mean, even in the military, you hear stories about people, carrying somebody who's wounded who weighs 200 pounds, across the desert, and not complaining. But it's not like they don't tell somebody, on the radio, I've got this guy, right? Because they want to
Yeah.
be tougher. I mean, the other thing, like, I think the implication is that she doesn't want to be pulled out. She wants to keep doing this job. She's been hiding her own degradation and her own difficulty for some time. We don't know how long, but that she basically like should have retired a ways ago. It's not about the money, it doesn't seem like. It seems like she just likes the job and can't relate to her family, God, I can sympathize. God, I hate my family. That's a joke. But no, I mean, it seems like she just really wants to just avoid her family. Yeah, so I don't know. I know what you're saying though. It's like this could be a very different movie if they just said your vitals are spiking. Like, you're telling me it's fine. It's not the equipment. I know it's not the equipment. You clearly just had an episode. We need to talk about this.
Yeah. Go somewhere private. Let's go through it. Like, well, not stopping the mission, but we got to at least discuss it.
Sure, of course.
Which is,
and that handler is going to get in trouble for not doing it.
Yeah. Well, it ends up being that. I think it degenerates after that, so it sort of devolves into a bit of a mess. Because that's the point. This is the point when it goes to the party, and then alcohol's involved, and then Voss sort of carries out the attack on Sean Bean, Pass, and ends up also killing the girlfriend. And it's all going to, but then she can't bring herself to shoot herself in the. Yeah, and this seems to be where there's some. She says, "Pull me out," and she's about to kill herself. And there seems to be, it should be able to all happen, but this is where the walls just seem to collapse between who is Tate and who is Voss inside the head, because the thing starts in the net inside the head starts to degrade. Yeah, this is where I sort of question things. Why don't they pull him out? Why don't they pull her out? Because at this point, like, he's done all this stuff. He's acted up at the party. Even if he does survive and the police pull him in, like, I don't know, it feels like.
Yeah, I'm confused by this too. But I'm confused by the pull me out, right? Because she says this she says this earlier in the first scene, not the first scene, but with the woman she possesses.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, why would you want to? Is the implication that is the suggestion that if you were pulled out, that somehow the brain you're being pulled out of is going to pull the trigger? Well, I don't think that makes sense.
No, that's it. So she can't
so
leave.
Why get pulled out before you pull the trigger? She's saying pull me out because she can't pull the trigger. But they need to dispose of the person whose body they're in. So why would you say pull me out? Why is she saying pull me out anyway?
Well, that's almost like I'm ready to go. It's almost like, two to transport, sort of thing. It's like I'm ready to go.
Two to beam up. Yeah, but I mean, you see what I'm saying? The job's not done.
No.
It's almost like if you pull them out, they'll fire the gun as a muscle reflex or something, and that'll get around having to pull the trigger herself. I mean, or is it that, like, you want to feel that you're being pulled out before you fire the gun because you don't want to be in a dying brain? I mean,
this is where this is where I wanted to see. There's something missing here in the story, where she's had a mission before where she successfully killed herself, but the experience of, like you say, of being in a dying brain or not being able to detach from that person's personality, or having that moment of suicide replayed over and over again. Maybe she saw it in front of a mirror or something, is what's really damaged her. Like, she's seen, she saw that moment of suicide and then obviously has lived on from it. Like, what are you if you live beyond a successful suicide? Like, and maybe that's, there feels that there's a damaging moment. There's a trauma that isn't revealed, that's causing this hesitancy, and I think that's a bit of a gap in the story that could do with being filled. That's where I think it comes to, because there is because it doesn't feel like they keep saying about the technology, like they can she's talking to the person at the other end, So it's
Right,
it's
right.
not like there's a if you're connected at the moment of death, like you die too. It's not like there's any of
Right.
that. It's
That's right. There's no implication there.
no. So I don't know. It seems like there's a justification for that missing. That I think.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even understand what, like pull me out means, entirely. Um, I assume they shut it off and then
Mm.
this person gets their brain back. But why would you do that with a gun to your head, right? I mean, like, I don't know, throw yourself out of a building or something, and say, pull me. I mean, I don't know. Like you said, there's no suggestion they
Well, they
die
need to.
anyway. So
The reason I think she's got to shoot herself in the face, or shooting herself or throwing herself off a building would work, but they've got to destroy
mhm,
the brain because although it's a
right.
biodegradable net, there's all the signs of surgery that's gone on. So I think they've got to
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right,
just destroy the head. Just destroy the
right.
brain, destroy the head to sort of tie up the loose ends, as it were.
Mhm.
Um, and that seems to be
Yeah.
so. Yeah, but it just feels odd because then that's when obviously the things start coming apart. And because of what happens at the ending, I don't know why they don't do
Other things.
other things. Yeah, we'll get to it when we get to the ending.
Well, let's talk for a second about gender. Let's stop at this point because I think there's something interesting going on here. I mean, first of all, you do see a lot of genitalia in this movie for,
Mm,
a mainstream release. There is a shot of her in his body with a penis.
mm,
Um, there's also, obviously the webcam stuff, stuff like that. And yeah, I'm not bothered by any of this. It's interesting, but the the thing that I wanted to highlight is especially um, the body that she possesses and his relationship to that girlfriend.
mm.
Because this is a story about where the woman is the main character, and why not have it be a woman? Because it's somebody possessing somebody else, right?
Yeah,
There's no need for that to be a man, and there's actually, I mean, the qualities that you need are like endurance and mental endurance and some things that possibly women are better at anyway.
mm.
But certainly there's no reason for this. It's like Avatar, right? Like there's no need for the person who goes in to be a white guy, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, okay, kudos to them. But so then again, you've got a woman as the protagonist who is invading or raping a man
Hmm.
as the main character that she invades. And he is somebody who's emasculated. So, his relationship to his girlfriend is that he only has this job, horrible as it is,
Yeah.
terrible and soul destroying as it is, because of her boss. And it reminds
Her
me of,
father, we should say.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
thank you. And it reminds me of sort of this dynamic that we see and we talk about, sort of men, um, I'm often interested by this. Of sort of, I know a lot of women who, because clearly his girlfriend is an intelligent woman,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Not just from a rich family, but also intelligent, probably more intelligent than he is. And it reminds me of this phenomenon of sort of, in this case, a woman with connections who's probably got a college degree, and who has this boyfriend who she likes, but is kind of a bum,
Yeah.
and so this is the kind of like, it's not the incel thing, but it's kind of like the, you know, my boyfriend just wants to play video games, and I got him a job. I got him a job, and he does nothing but bitch about the job. Like, I'm inheriting money. Like, what are, and then her friends tease him too,
Hmm.
right? So there's clearly a kind of gender thing going on there. And I wondered if you had any thoughts about that.
No, I actually, um, I did think about it from, not that much that sense. That's a really good point. I mean, that's sort of this thing about, you're getting back to incels. You're also thinking about sort of the Andrew Tate kind of scenario, this sort of like ultra machification, the alpha male kind of scenario of, and all this other stuff. It's all bullshit, but this other stuff.
Mhm.
But, um, I did think about some of that, but one of the things I thought that was that sort of played to me was about this thing you say about she's invading this guy's body, and she does it. She examines the body, and it's not done for titillation. It's not done in a sort of in any none of it. Nothing in this film is ever sexy. Let's put it that way. But she examines and she does.
Well, the murders.
Yes, yeah, oh yeah, well, yes, of course, goes without saying. But when she examines his body, like she's doing it almost as a sort of like a a man's body. I need to know the body, so she sort of examines it. It's not clinical, but it's not it's not sensuous either. It's sort of somewhere in the middle. So she examines his genitals and all this other stuff. Fine. And then she lives, but then she sleeps with the girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the bit that I was like, that's interesting, because and this is an odd thing for me. I have thought about it, and I've actually discussed this with people. Like, I'm a male. I'm a cis white male, so I understand the sensations of sex from a male perspective, right? But then but women, so but when a man has an orgasm, it's one way. A woman has an orgasm, it's a very different sort of physical and psychological experience. So how would it be for her to be in a man's body to then get an erection and to sort of to then penetrate and to have that orgasm? I was like, how that in itself, because it's and that's when she has one of those moments of the wall breaking down a little bit during the sex scene, and it struck me as it's at moments of, like you say, sort of like gender, where the genders do sort of separate biologically. In this case, it's almost like that the wall starts to sort of fracture a little bit. And is it because she's not able to process, so she's never had to process that experience before? Like, again, we don't know what her.
We don't know. Yeah.
We don't know, because the first case we see is another woman, like she's possessing another woman. So fine. So I was because that then did make me think about, obviously, being a trans person. If you go through that the full surgery and you go through the full transition to to become the fully physically the other gender, like, yeah, you're going to experience things very differently. But and I don't know, and I can't talk to it really, but I am curious to say, like, well, because there's the chromosomal sort of like genetic male like myself. I experience things as a male physically, what I'm saying, and then there'll be a woman, genetically a woman experiences. If you've then gone through the transition and you've gone through and you've had such, it's almost like, I don't want to say the third option, but like, you have gone through a transition. You're never going to be fully female or male if you do the transition, because you've had, there's things are never going to be exactly the same, but you are closer. So how psychologically trying to sort of process that change of sensation must be incredibly. I don't know. I can't. But that really what made me think about was like, there's a sensation there that sort of breaks that barrier a little bit.
I think it's very interesting what you said, that those moments of gender serve as a possible disruption, or breaking the barrier, or possibly contributing to that further erosion of that barrier between the two minds that causes the third act. Yeah, I mean, I think that when I was younger, when I was a 20-year-old man, and sort of, I sort of saw the distinction between the sexes and the genders as much more extreme than I do now. I mean, I still see biological difference, even though that's unpopular. But I suspect personally that, first of all, I mean, people have had that experience, right? And you say it's not the same, but I mean, okay.
I'm guessing. I can't say because I will never will experience it. But yeah.
But I mean, like, the nerves aren't exactly the same, right? From the surgery right now. But I mean, but but we are talking about basically the same wiring. I mean, I think that, as a man or as a woman, the experience of penetrating versus being penetrated has to be very different. And I think that we're very focused on that difference.
Yes.
Having said that, I don't think it would cause, like, I mean, I think like if I could mentally possess a woman and experience, what she experienced, I don't think that I would be like traumatized and be like, it's totally different. I have no idea. Golly gee, what they were going through, shiver me timbers. I mean, I think I'd probably be like, oh, it's interesting, it's different. I would like to have that experience. That sounds fascinating. But I don't know. I don't know that it would be as shocking, but it's certainly something to think about, right? I mean, certainly it would be different, right? I mean, it would be, you know, something that would, add to one's repertoire of human experiences.
Mm.
That's very unique. I don't know.
It just, yeah, and you're right. I don't think it'd be as earth shattering or as sort of like conscious shattering as some things, but I think it would be a very different experience.
Mm.
But the point I think I want to make with the film is that this net provides like this network, whatever in Tate's head provides like control, but also a barrier. Like there's a wall. He's walled off in some sort of capacity, and I don't know how I don't know what that experience is like for him during that time, but he sort of breaks through at points of either arousal, because when she has the trip out when she's got the goggles on at work, it's when she sees these two people having sex.
Good point.
And then it's obviously during sex that it sort of it happens again, and that's sort of, let's say, that's sexual arousal. But when it really starts to fall apart is later on, when it's sort of like, it would seem that this anger that they've played up for this narrative is real, and actually sort of the wall starts to break down when there is further arousal, which is this the body is heightened, so it's I don't know, it sort of feels like there's something in that there's something in Tate in as well as in Voss that's causing this breakdown. And I think there's something in him that's, I think, almost like we've referred to her sort of potential sociopathy or psychopathy, but I think there's something in Tate as well that's causing this. He's got like a simmering anger, like he is genuinely. He may have even considered what actually happens.
Yeah, that's possible. I haven't thought about that. I was going to say, before we moved on, that it might be one reason why you'd want to have a Voss be female, because possessing and having sex in a woman's body as a man probably wouldn't fly in 2020 as easily as the reverse, right?
Yeah.
But you're right. There's so let's think about those murders, right? Because we have two main murders, right? One is the stabbing at the beginning, where it just goes on and on and on, and then the other is she's got a gun, but kills the succession sort of boss guy with a poker, and shoves it in his mouth, and watches him as she twists it, and then stabs him underneath the eye. There's some very graphic stuff here. Of her essentially, sort of playing with the victim as he gurgles, and we find out later he actually has survived, but we only hear that on TV. I'm not sure why that winds up being important if it does.
It's because I think this is part of the thing. Like, his mission has failed. Like,
right.
Although because he's not fully recovering, he's survived, but he won't recover. But it still feels like the mission is incomplete. Yeah,
right. And she's sort of botched it, and then she kills his girlfriend, and I thought that's exquisitely well done. She fires, and you're not really sure if she hit the girlfriend, but you do see the bullets, and you think, like, in a lesser movie, right? You would think, like, a Mission Impossible movie or something. You think like, oh, it just missed, right? It just happened to miss, and it hit the wall right behind where she was running away. But Voss isn't distracted. Voss is gonna, and maybe because of sociopathy, but Voss is like, I'm gonna keep playing with this corpse for a minute here, before I go check on the girlfriend, who's also my mission to kill. and then we find the girlfriend, has taken two in the back, right?
Yeah.
And is really struggling and gets finished off then with the gun. Here again, I think the movie knows it's 2020 and doesn't want to play with a woman's body as she's murdered.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know. I don't know how much of it is clear
what
there's
would
some
have been-
anger
Yeah.
in the body, the host, but
Yeah, and how what because that's what I think would be interesting, because when we get to the third act, I think, we'll get to the finale, I think, because this is sort of leading into that. That's what led me to question this, because there are several scenes, and again, I'm not questioning how Brandon Cronenberg films this, but you say about having the guy who plays Tate, having a man beating a woman to death with the poker is a very difficult thing to show, I think, in 2020, and sort of it's fine for have Sean Bean beaten to death because he dies in every film, so it's almost like his contract. But what would be interesting is, and I think it would throw in something different, is, they could do it quite easily, is have the actress plays Voss, have them on screen committing the act, and it's not her there physically, it's Tate, but it's her that's experiencing that moment, and it's her anger or her, and that way, if she was to beat the girlfriend to death following the gunshots, like, you'd be like, oh no, this isn't a man beating on a woman. This is someone this is like Voss, who's clearly psychotic or something, beating on this. This is something extreme. I think would have been it would have been uncomfortable, but I think it would have possibly been laid out the situation even more than that it is already.
Yeah. Now, I mean, I did kind of wonder if it was, especially, I think the moment where I wonder if it's pulling its punches is when he finishes off she in Voss in his body finishes off the girlfriend with a shot to the head. And I thought, well, compared to the, 10 minutes of slow head crumpling
Trauma.
that
Yeah.
I've been watching, this is so mercifully brief, and it comes later, right? So if anything, it should be an escalation. That sort of felt like pulling its punches a little.
I agree.
But
until the end, in which when the child gets involved, and then I'm like, oh no,
that's quite beautiful, right? So let's talk about the third act.
So the third act leads into that. So basically,
he's botched the mission.
He's botched the mission. He goes on the run, hides out in the friend of the girlfriend, who she's shown an interest in him. So he's going to use that as a hideout, or Voss is going to use that as a hideout. But the wall is starting to break down. Like there's almost like memory gaps happening, where he's passing out. We don't know who's doing what, because and then this guy turns up. Well, first off, we actually say we find out that the girl, this friend says, "Oh, she's going to go have a shower," and then we never really see anything, and then we find out she's been killed as well. And so you're a bit like, okay, wow.
We see Tate raise the gun to her, and it's a really creepy kind of like psycho moment, right? But you don't see the actual murder.
No, so you sort of like you can sort of assume, but you're never entirely sure.
Yeah.
But it's confirmed, but this is when Tate sees it, he's shocked. But then another person comes in who we've seen is a friend from work who knows all this stuff, but is now what they call. He calls him like a handler, kind of thing. Like he's there to help, and he brings the calibration machine so that they can recalibrate and get the thing done.
Right.
But it doesn't quite go to plan. And
then basically, Tate regains control and goes to her house.
He's able to access. This is where it becomes a two-way street. Like he's able to access her memories and her thoughts, and so he tracks down. He meets the son. Eventually, sort of gets into the. He knows her name. He's managed to sort of get her name, and he gets into the house and he starts attacking the husband, asking where she is, because he wants to sort of get her out. And it's then she sort of comes. I like it. There's a nice scene where they almost have like an internal conversation.
Yeah, I was confused by that. I mean, so a couple of things here. One is you pointed out that Tate is himself violent, right? it's funny, like we take this for granted in stuff like Total Recall, where it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, the person doing the possessing and the person you're possessing are both violent. There's a kind of like in the 80s and 90s, you just assume like anybody is one bad situation away from committing, murder
Not
and
even a
jumping
bad
over cop
situation.
cars.
Yeah, just give them a gun. Just give them a gun, and all of a sudden things go sideways. That was the rule in the 80s. But yeah,
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, look, it's a premise of Die Hard, which, gets so much acclaim because it just says, hey, that's a hard transition to make. You're going to step
yeah.
on glass. And we're like, brilliant. Everybody else just instantly became an action hero. Um, but now it's 2020, and that's no longer the case. So, I guess, first you have a point about like how he takes to this very well.
hmm
Uh, Violence is not so, and acting in an intimidating way, going to somebody's home, implicitly threatening their kid. These are not lines to him, right?
Yeah.
That he's crossing. Um, it doesn't seem like. I was confused by when he sort of calls upon her and she appears in the room. Like, I guess I'm willing to go along with the idea that he would have access to some of her memories, some of her thoughts. Why would you then, I hate when there's the sort of Fight Club thing of like, it's such a cliche of like every mental illness involves imagining somebody in the room with you,
The
right?
two
If it's consistent,
personalities have to have a conversation. Yeah.
yeah,
The Moon Knight version of doing it through a mirror, or you go into an internal space where the two characters can face off and that sort of thing. Yeah, it's there. It's supposed to, because they talked sort of, but this is where it gets interesting. This is where I sort of it gets really interesting because this is where they do something that I've just suggested they should have done previously, because we know that it's Tate in the house, and it's Tate that kills the husband. He attacks the husband and basically sort of stabs him, and it's not Voss, it is Tate that kills the husband as a sort of as almost like a revenge act on Voss. Then the son comes in and shoots the small blonde child comes in and shoots Tate. And there's obviously this thing of like, then because he falls to the ground, pulls round, fires, and shoots the kid in the chest. And you see the blood sort of come out. But it's not Tate that then fires 3 more times. It's Voss. They have the actress who plays Voss in the clothes of Tate firing 3 times, including through the head of her son. And there's a hesitation. Like, she stops. Like, Tate's killed the kid, and then she fires 3 more times. And then when the boy's down, you hear someone say, "Pull me out." And you find out that it was
right.
Jennifer Jason Leigh, that her handler that's done this. But it's still Voss that killed her own son,
I
not
hadn't thought
Tate.
about that. Yeah.
I wanted to know what you thought of that.
Yeah, I mean, I hadn't really processed that. I mean, is that the argument for the sociopathy? That really underneath both Tate and Voss hate all the people they killed, like they both wanted to do it.
That's well, there's several things you can argue for. You can argue for the fact that she knows that her son has been possessed, in order to take her out, so it's self-defense. But it's not, though, because she's not in the room; she's off in a machine somewhere.
True.
So that doesn't make sense. I don't know, or is it like you say, that moment of combination where the barriers completely come down and it's just rage, and
Yeah, I mean, I kind of thought like, it was sort of like the sort of self-defense instinct, but also like at that point, that kind of imagery had gotten confusing to me to the point where I'm not really clear where, because she's in his clothing. It makes sense that, yeah, okay, so that's her doing it. I just, it was clear to me at times that it's Tate, in the house, but we've had so much imagery kind of combining them that I'm never 100% sure who's doing what.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, it was one of those interesting things of like, it's one of the things I was expecting. I've talked about a trope. One trope that they did,
hmm,
and this is where I think this is where the ending's so interesting. She's shot, but like, and Tate goes down, and then the kid's like, she shoots him in the face. And firstly, I like the fact it's not like a perfect shot through the middle of the forehead, which drives me nuts. Like, this is a Cronenberg film. We're going to get something different. Like, it blows out the back of his head, but like, it's through his cheek, and it squirts, and it does all kinds of like, really, like, I was like, oh, Jesus Christ. But
realistic.
it is. Oh yeah, no, it was really. But one of the things I was expecting was like to see Voss as Tate, or in some way depict him sort of pulling themselves across the floor, going like, no, like the instant regret or something, or cradling the child in their hand or arms or something, or soaked with blood, and then going to being pulled out or something. But they don't. They just have the blood filling the floor.
And that's such a beautiful shot, right? I mean, the gun is sort of between them, but there's this beautiful, beautiful shot of the blood mingling, coming together as both of their blood sort of seeps towards each other across the floor. That is this kind of strange, beautiful connection. It really is lovely, and I hope someday to have a connection with a son of my own like that. I'm not joking. I'm playing the psychopath this episode, but no. But
it is a really well shot. Though
it's very beautiful.
Oh, it is. I think obviously the cinematography in this is spot on throughout. I think some really amazing shots. But one of the things that goes back to then is you find it's Jennifer Jason Leigh and Gerda and Voss are taking out the machines, and they do the tests again, and this is where it ends. And this is where it made me really. This is where it sort of really pushed that psychopathy to me, was because you talk about faking things. They fake emotion, or if you're really suffering from, being a psychopath or something, you fake things. You sort of do this and that. And it's the fact that what the dialogue she says when she handles the pipe and when she handles the box with the thing in is identical to what she has said previously. And so it's not that she's remembering the items and having some sort of connection with those items. She's seeing the item and going, here's the dialogue that goes with this item to show so I can pass the test and move on. And then she obviously
quite brilliant. Yeah.
And then she holds onto the butterfly, and she highlights again that I killed this and I mounted it and stuff. And it's, as you said, it's the thing that she's admitting that, oh, I killed something and put it on display when I was young and I kept it. And it sort of hangs on that. And I'm like, this suggests to me that there was always something.
She was always a psychopath.
There was always something with Voss that was going to lead to this, this was almost like inevitable. But then it's left ambiguous, because it's like, well, what happens after this? Like, she can't go home. Her family's been killed, and the job's been kind of botched. So where to go from here? But it's Any thoughts on that final sort of scene?
No, I mean, I think it's interesting. I do wonder what happens next. I mean, I do wonder what's going to happen with this. I mean, your family's dead, right? I mean, they're not going to, this is sort of debriefing, but you assume they're not going to put her in again, right? I mean, her career's over. Her family's dead. I love your psychopathy, sociopathy sort of angle here. I mean, I think it's implicit in that sort of butterfly. I did find it a sort of strange note to end on. And maybe that's because I didn't clue in on, like the idea of sort of, well, she was always crazy. She wasn't made crazy by this device. She was always the person who was going to stab 30 times and claim it was in character, right?
Yeah, and that was the point, like, because even Gerda, sort of her handler, seems to know that there's something there, because when she asks, like, whose character,
right.
this feels almost like this could have been, this should have been the last job. Like, you don't know that there's, in another version of this, there's an office scene. There's a scene back at base where you see her handlers discussing her, saying like, we've got to put her down after this, or like this has got to be her last mission. She's not, because they sort of suggest that like if she stays in too long, she's going to have, as you said, sort of neurological damage and all this other stuff. But another version would give you that would say her repeatedly doing this has caused this degradation, has caused this sort of neurological damage. We have caused this by her going on so many missions or whatever.
Right. Well, that's a possibility too, right? Is that sociopathy has been itself a result of this process.
Yeah.
And we do know that, after the botched, suicide attempt, with Tate, that she is bleeding in her, projection mask thing, and they say there already is brain damage, right? And they have this, like, as close as you're talking about, as close as we get to that kind of scene where they're sort of debating pulling her out, just right in the room, and say, no, let's not do that. Leave her in. They don't seem to care about her. But it's clear that there is some sort of damage there.
Yeah. Yeah, this is the last time, like you say, like, but why debrief her if you're just going to sort of like kill her off? Like, I don't think they'd be given I don't think they'd be. Their whole point is about a narrative, isn't it? Like, they want to remain distant from. So, what's the narrative like?
Well, one thing that I find myself wondering about is how are they going to ever explain that he went to her house?
Well, exactly, that's what I'm saying. Like, there needs to be a narrative that explains all this away. Like, you get to that house, why is the son? But so why is the son all shot up? Why is, But if they know that it's him that killed this the boss, and the girlfriend and this other stuff. So yeah, why does it lead back to her? Why this house? There's stories, there's ways of doing it, I suppose, because he bumps into the son in the street, doesn't he?
Yeah, right. On that little road there.
Yeah. Which I think is twofold. I realized something whilst we were talking about it. So that, you could do that thing of, he was just wandering aimlessly and he came across this person and they chose them as random victims, or, there's ways you could probably explain it away. But the kid, the boy says about, he asks him what you've got there. He says, "Oh, I've got a map," and it's sort of like, he says, "Oh, I was given this map," and it doesn't really occur to me until now, like, that map is probably the trap, the bait that got him out of the house, that allowed them to kidnap him so that they could do the surgery on him to be possessed.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot going on here. So, I mean, if the Jennifer Jason Leigh character, right, if, she has that comment earlier after the first job where Voss has possessed the black woman and been killed by the cops, says something about, like, don't go back home, or, like, is kind of critical of her, doing that, of kind of like maintaining this kind of connection. And then she's the one who winds up being the son, right? Controlling the son, and arranging for, the end result of this is that her family's dead. Maybe that Voss's family's dead. Maybe the point is, like, to manipulate Voss to make Voss more sociopathic, not less. We're assuming that the problem is that Voss is a sociopath. I might have been selected for this, but maybe the point is, like, to be perfect at this job, you've got to be a sociopath, and, like, how much of this is a conspiracy to kill Voss's family?
That's a very good point. Like, by removing that emotional connection, or the last tethers of that emotional connection, she's actually now a much more efficient possessor, a much more efficient killer. But she's still unreliable. She's still unreliable. Like, she'd still be going in and being like, "We gave you a gun, yet you use a chainsaw. Can you stop doing that?" Like,
Right. Yeah, and also, like, how would they have, from a conspiratorial angle, kept her from killing herself as Tate, right? And
Yeah,
let Tate be in control. He's clearly in control when he goes to the house. And I mean, we could mention that mask that he makes that we in the sort of fantasy sequences of her face that he puts on.
which is the poster for most versions. Yeah,
Yeah.
well, it's not
Super
just him.
creepy.
It is. It's brilliant, but it's not just. If you notice, it's not just him. It shows him under it's her face in his sort of like warped, melting mask, which is very similar to the melting figure that we've seen during the infusion of the two people.
Mm-hmm.
It starts off with him, but yeah, you get Holly, the black woman from the beginning, is under there as well.
Yeah. Okay.
At one point, you get a flash of that murder, and you see her under there. So you do get this idea of like, if it's a two-way street, like what residual? Cause she mentions this idea of having. So what residual is left from previous previous people as well? But yeah, that's a lot. I love that scene where it's the mask, and it's sort of like because it replays scenes. It has him in the mask, but then sniffing the kid and doing all these other things.
Yeah.
It's really creepy, but really well done.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good, and that's a good way to sum up the film too, right? Like, really creepy, really well done. I mean, I do have these lingering questions about kind of, how do you explain this away? You know, we have some basic questions about what's going on here, beyond probably where I think we're comfortable having.
Yeah, I think there are questions. I mean, you could even go as far as to say that test that you see at the end, we don't actually know that that's a test following the execution of the family, because we didn't see the end. I've said it's the same dialogue. It could be the same test.
Yeah, or an earlier test.
That's what I mean. Yeah, it could be a previous. I don't. Is it the test following the events of the finale, or is it actually the test? In fact, it's probably more likely to be the test following the murder at the beginning of the film.
I think it's a test following the finale, but the fact that we're asking that question, means that something's gone wrong, right?
Yes.
In terms of the film's ability to explain the basics of what has happened and why, right?
Yeah.
I mean, now look, Videodrome doesn't do that very well either.
No.
And I love Videodrome. But this does seem to have a more complex narrative. It does seem like there are answers to these questions in Brandon Cronenberg's mind. I just don't think, and they're evocative. I mean, having that repeated test, like the last episode we talked about Blade Runner 2049, and that baseline, right? That works very well for me. The sort of, this is Voss's baseline. But so there's a lot that works. It's very evocative. I love, the son saying, "Pull me out," and like that's a great little twist. But those twists don't all seem to work or match up here, and we are left with some basic questions.
I'd say you're right. I think the last 15 minutes of the film, there's so much going on. There's a lot revealed, and there's a lot visually presented. That I think, like you say, the focus and stuff of the visuals and the narrative, the information that you're supposed to be sort of taking away, get a little bit muddled up, get quite a bit lost. And I do think that's where they're sort of like there's it's not long. It's not long from sort of what 1 hour 40, something like that. You could take your time a little bit more with that finale, give it an extra sort of 5 minutes, and I think you would have just a little bit more clarity that would allow you to sort of walk away from this going, oh, I think I've answered 95% of the questions I had.
Yeah, and I think that it's funny because we've done a lot of foreign films, we've done a lot of ambiguous films. I think we're very comfortable with that. But we also want there to be want there to be answers, right? Want there to be an explanation. And as much as we're critical of sort of information dumps and the exposition, it's perfectly possible to get us a little more idea of how this technology works, a little more idea of what's going to follow after this, of why at the most basic level, why did Jennifer Jason Leigh go into this kid, right?
Yeah.
When? How long, right? I think it would not take very much to just gesture in these directions. We don't need it spelled out Hollywood style, like,
No.
now that you've revived, let me tell you what we were doing this whole time.
Yeah.
We don't want that.
Here's a graph that tells all the in a diagram that tells everything that's happening. No, it's that thing of like exposition in dialogue rather than exposition, or rather than dialogue being exposition. Like it doesn't have to be even forefront. Like you said, there's dialogue in the background at one point about when she comes out after the finale that, oh, she's got neurological damage. Like, this is different. You see that she's got a bit of blood. She's got blood on her gown. Like, you see that this is a different scenario to what you had at the start of the film. So it's just little things like that. You can give that information that in different ways. I think would be a bit better. But that's not to say that, like you say, I still love this film. I still really enjoy this film. The fact it does make me think is, and it makes me want to go, oh yeah, what else has Brandon Cronenberg done? I want to see Antiviral. I want to see Infinity Portal. I want to see those things now.
Yeah, me too.
I'm curious. This guy's got, he's got a style. Yeah, and he's got some chops.
Yeah.
I think this, he's.
Well, and also, we're talking about, he's done 3 full-length films. They're all sci-fi, which is not true of his father. Who's dabbled in sci-fi, but really has mostly done, horror and, crime and, different genres, all with his own style. But I mean, it's interesting that Brandon Cronenberg is, at least so far, more interested in science fiction.
Yes.
So yeah,
with horror elements as well, though, like quite strong horror elements. Like this all, yeah,
that very visceral sort of Cronenberg-esque, thing. So no, I had the same reaction, I think.
Yeah, no, I don't think, and I think it does. I'm definitely going to check out some more of his stuff. And obviously, ladies and gentlemen, we did watch. Oh God, what's it called? Please speak. Yes, please speak continuously about your experiences. It's a 10-minute short film that Brandon Cronenberg made, basically to test out
filming
this, to test out some filming techniques and some ideas and to sort of try some different pieces. And we talk about that on the Patreon. So go and check that out, because obviously, every time we do one of these, not every time, but we are heavily loaded. I think the end of this season, we've done some really cool stuff. We've covered an awful lot of stuff, and so go check out that short film discussion.
And just so people know, I mean, in addition to Twilight Zone, we've got the we still got a couple Doctor Who things. We've got the THX short. We've got this Please Speak Continuously short. We've got the Blade Runner shorts. We've got the Hitchhiker's miniseries. We've got the Transformers original 3 episodes. We are just loading up on there. Because we need those Benjamins. The rent's increasing. Tiller and Lem.
Cost of living, man. He's really he's really pushing down on us, like all landlords are. But if you like what we're doing on the main feed, like those are, we're doing something a little bit extra. The things that we probably wouldn't cover on the main feed, side pieces, bonus features, short films, other things that we're going to sort of end up covering.
We didn't even mention Battle Royale 2 and the other Hard to Be a God.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so we've
2 whole movies.
2 whole movies there. Yeah. So yeah, we've done all kinds of things, and there will be more. So yeah, go and check out £5 a month. I feel like I'm doing sort of like some telethon now, just for £5 a month. You can
save a child's life.
You can save a podcaster's life.
Keep the podcast going.
That's right. Keep the lights on. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, make your choice. If you want to sponsor one podcast this month, make it Stories Out of Time and Space.
Daddy, why did Stories Out of Time and Space stop making podcasts? Well, they just didn't have the money. It's something that happens. But
right.
I like that podcast, Daddy. Do you want this to be the reality?
That's right. We are helping you. We're an educational service. We're making things better in the world. Just give us your money. No, do go check it out. There is a lot of things on there. There's hours and hours of bonus content. Like, you've got access to all kinds of things over there. Like I say, and as well, just me doing 30-minute thoughts. There's also quarterly creator corner where I speak to different people, and there'll be all kinds of other bits and pieces on there as well. There's some written bits, and also because Julian and I are in the early stages of doing a Stories Out of Time and Space book, a collection of essays on films from the first 2 or 3 seasons. First 3 seasons, 12 essays, that's 6 a piece, and then some Red Dwarf specials, some other bonus features. You will get to learn some early stuff around that book as well. So you might get some glimpses of the things we're doing on that. Maybe the cover, maybe some snippets of the essays. We'll let you know. But go find out. So go check it out. There's a link down below. But www.patreon.com/20CG Media. So go check that out. There's a link down below, and it'll be all over Twitter as well. Anyway, for now though, Julie, any final thoughts? I should say on Possessor before we do wrap up.
No, I enjoyed this movie. I just wish there were more like close-ups of eyeballs being crushed, or pokers being shoved in somebody's mouth.
That's a Sam Raimi kind of a gig as well. He introduces the humor, but yeah, no, I agree. This is a very visceral film, and I do think I'll go back to this. I always think when I go back to this, I think I will. It's one of those I think will be a slightly different experience watching it again, because I'll be looking out for things and considering it. So maybe take some time away from it, but I'll go back to it.
It's worth the audience's time, man. Like it's not perfect, but I mean it's good. We both enjoyed it. I know I missed the chance to say it, but can we just stop and say like it's got a 3-act structure?
Yes.
Like it actually tells a story from start to finish and follows a conventional structure. Like that's so rare these days. It's well told in a way that other movies are not, even though it loves its visuals, and it still has some ambiguities, stuff we hit it on, but and for a sci-fi movie that actually has us thinking about stuff, and I haven't seen exactly this kind of story before, and that's saying a lot. So again, kudos to Brandon Cronenberg.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think you're right. It's very well structured. It's very well written. It's been given thought, and I'm looking forward to. I'm definitely going to go off and find out about Antiviral. I think tonight. That's the other one that's been around since I think 2012. So we'll see what that's like. But but anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. Go check out and give us the support. We greatly appreciate all the support we get. But for now, thank you very much, and we shall see you on the next episode. But actually, before I go, I should say the next episode is the end of the season. We will end in a second, but is the end of the season. So we'll be wrapping up, and we'll be discussing
and rating
the
second half of the season.
Yeah, the second half of the season. So
and then going back and looking at the whole season, our biggest season yet.
Yeah,
with 24 movies over 26 installments, not to mention all of the Patreon side stuff. Quite an ambitious 8-year-long season Scott and I have embarked on of bi-weekly 2 hours a week. You're getting, substantial stuff here, and a whole year. This is the end, Scott, of a year-long project. Can you believe this?
And we've covered 90 years of cinema from 1930 through to 2020. So there's a lot of if you were to watch Just Imagine and Possessor next to each other, I think you'll definitely see there's
They're
been
virtually the same movie.
Yeah, we haven't shifted that much at all in 90 years. But anyway,
I want more Norwegian musical numbers in Possessor.
That's what it's missing. Maybe one day, that's where Cronenberg's going to go. We'll see. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. We appreciate it all, and yes, we shall see you on the next episode.